right, this time I'm going to make a spout for use on a teapot. Now pitcher spouts are generally a little bit different than teapot spouts. Teapot spouts can be made a whole bunch of different ways, but the way I'm going to show you here is throwing a teapot spout off the hump. Oops. Gotta get it centered on there. Alright. So I'm going to center my whole chunk of clay here, but I'm only going to work with this top section. Now obviously depending on the size of your teapot you might want more or less spout. There are also some varieties of spout shapes that you can throw on the wheel. In this video I'm going to throw a fairly simple spout shape. So I'm going to work with just a small section of this clay. I'm going to pretend that's my new bottom and I'm only working with this top section of the clay. I'm going to go ahead and drill my hole in the center. And I'm going to drill this all the way down past this line. There's no bottom to a spout, so there's no limit to how low I can go. I mean, I don't need to go all the way down there. And then instead of opening out the whole wall, I'm actually going to tuck my fingers and open out just the bottom part of the wall here. And so I'm going to squeeze more at the bottom of the clay than the top, making this a little thinner than it is here. Now, as I pull my walls up, and slow down my wheel a little bit, I'm concentrating on thinning out this bottom section, sort of like you do when you're working on a cylinder that you're trying to shape. I'm thinning out this bottom part. Once I get a little higher, I'll do some collaring, and then I'll come back here and I'll thin out this next section. Now recently I've seen some really nice things that people are doing where they're leaving the spouts kind of thick and cutting or carving away some of the surface. And that's something you're welcome to do. But regardless of what shape your spout is, there's a couple of hydraulic things, I guess, water movement sorts of things that you should be concerned about. One of those is that if you have a spiral happening on the inside of your pot, of your spout, the water's going to follow that spiral and potentially come out of the pot a little bit crooked. Another sort of thing is how much space your water has to flow. I've got some unevenness at the top from collaring, so I'm just going to get that out of there. And then I'm going to do some more pulling and some more collaring because I want to get this spout nice and skinny. If I can keep it skinny if I leave it this wide and the water pours out of a spout that wide, it's going to kind of glug out. The water's going to flow out, some water's going to flow in at the same time, and it's going to be a slower movement. But if I can narrow this opening quite a bit, and I've just got way too much clay here, if I can narrow this opening more and more and get it to be very, very fine, very, very narrow, then that opening is going to accelerate the movement of the water. It's the Venturi principle. That narrow space causes the water to come out faster. There's less of it, but it's going in a stream. And so this kind of narrow opening is going to have that water moving a little bit faster. Now, just like working with other pieces that you're collaring, you can use the rib to clean up that outside edge. But how are you going to get on the inside edge? Remember, we don't want a spiral happening on the inside edge there. Well, one of the ways is you could use something like your needle tool with that smooth edge, and you can get in there and compress that rim with the edge of the needle tool. You also notice something that I've got going on here. I've left this edge fairly sharp. And part of the reason for that is that if I have a very round edge, if I get in here with a sponge or a chamois, and I round out that edge here, then the water or the tea, as it pours out of this spout, the water tension is going to cause it to wrap around that end, and it's going to be more likely to dribble. It's going to be more likely to have a drip of water come down this way. If I get that inside edge fairly sharp, and one of the best ways to get it sharp is to get it a little cut. Keep that finger inside so it doesn't move on you. If I have that inside edge fairly sharp, that cuts the water tension and it breaks the water, right? It breaks that meniscus of the water, and that water will come out a little bit more cleanly. Now I sometimes, I try to get this sharp now, but I sometimes come back to it when it's a little bit drier, after it's dried up off the wheel. So I have right now a hollow space till about here. The bottom isn't a very exciting shape at this point, but I can have it be a little bit rounder, or I can get in there and make it a little bit smoother. The other thing you can do, as long as your clay is aged a little bit, is you can get this spout to curve a little bit when it's on the wheel. You don't have to do that. Some people like to curve their spout, some people don't. It's just personal preference kind of thing. But this spout now, when I cut it off of here and lift it off of here, this is a spout that can attach to the side a little bit lower, and that curve that's in there is going to allow it to come up on the side of the spout. When we go to attach it to the wheel or to the pot, we can trim this, so we don't have to attach it straight on like that. We can trim some of this clay away, but we'll wait until later to do that. Now I've got enough clay left here that I can work on something else. I can make another kind of piece, and so I'm going to go ahead and make just a small creamer kind of form, so you can see another way to make a spout, a different type of spout. So I'm going to drill my hole, make a nice flat floor in the piece here. Probably should have centered it a little bit more than I did. I'm going to center my piece here, pull my walls up, and I'm going to leave a little bit more thickness at the top than I might otherwise do. That I might do for, say, a mug. Pitcher like this, a creamer like this, you can see the inside, so it's a good idea to get in and compress that, make that floor strong and attractive looking. And then I've got some more clay down at the bottom here that I can pull up. But like I said, I'm not going to pull it all the way to the top. I'm going to keep this section a little bit thick, and to give myself a visual, I'm just going to kind of drag my finger in there so I know where I want that thick section to be. Then I can come back to the bottom. I'm going to make a little kind of belly here, a little bit more space for containing whatever cream or whatever is going to be in here. And then just to make things look pretty, I'm going to get in there with my rib. I can use that edge of the rib to define where that thick section is. Get my water out of my inside here. And now with a piece like this, the spout isn't attached later on, it's actually pulled out of the form itself. So you can let this set up a little bit. My clay is fairly wet today, and I would, if I were going to edit these videos, I would probably let it sit up a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and pull the spout right now. So I'm going to just leave it here on the wheel head. It can come off, it doesn't need to stay on the wheel head, but I'm leaving it on for right now. And I'm going to start to squeeze this clay with the wheel stopped. You might even want to turn the wheel off so you don't accidentally start it spinning on you. But I'm going to pull this, squeeze this thick part of the clay. Now you see why I've left some thickness on the rim here. It allows me more clay that's more movable to become this spout. So I am pulling side to side, and to see it from a slightly different angle and to get myself balanced a little bit. I'm pulling up this clay. I'm trying not to squeeze all the way right to the rim because I want to keep some thickness on that rim. I don't want that rim to get super skinny and weak. And I'm just kind of transitioning it a little bit out of the side of this wall here. And what this has done is this has moved some of this clay that was thick over here up into into being a higher section of the clay, and that's where my spout is going to be. I had some water dripped in there that I wanted to clean out of there. Now, one of the funny things about spouts is we talked about that water dynamics thing where you thin out that edge here. Getting this edge very, very thin actually does a nice job of cutting the water flow, but getting it too thin also makes it more likely to chip in the dishwasher. So it's one of those trade-offs. Can you tolerate a little bit of dribble, or can you tolerate a little bit of chipping? And I don't know. It probably depends on your life situation. So I've got this stretched out. It's not very attractive right now. It's just kind of stretched out. So I'm going to go ahead and use my finger and my thumb together to get some definition on this rim. Mine's pretty sticky. My piece is pretty sticky, like I said right now, and so you can do shaping a little bit different if it's a little bit drier. I'm also going to get my hands dry. Remember, I used a rib on the outside, so I can actually take and shape the whole pot just a little bit more. And if I catch this before it gets all the way to leather hard, before it gets real stiff, I can do some more shaping again once it's off the wheel, once it's stiffened up a little bit. And now this piece is ready to lift off. I just got to find a spot for it over here. Lift off the wheel and dry up so that later on it can get a handle.